We got a text message on Monday afternoon saying, hey, come on down to the NovaCare tomorrow. We have players and coaches available. A nice little surprise, Roob.
Yeah, it was kind of out of the blue. Wasn't expecting it, but always good to be down at the NovaCare with the fellas.
Yeah, it was very good. So we'll get into some of our takeaways there. Roob, I want an update on how you did at the Eagles Autism Challenge. So we'll get that in a little bit. Then we have a bunch of questions coming up a little bit later on. This is the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan, Reuben Frank, and Dave Zangaro. So I think maybe one of the reasons the Eagles had press conferences today was to give Nick Sirianni a chance to speak for the first time since his contract extension. So it was good to talk to him. We also talked to A.J. Brown, Jordan Mailata, and Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, offensive guys, all offense today. It was a good day down there. Really the first time we've talked to these guys, other than maybe at an appearance or something, since locker cleanout day. I spoke to Jordan Mailata for a second on Saturday morning, but yeah, it was good to see what they had to say, and I thought it was a pretty interesting day.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the takeaways there. The Eagles are right now in phase 2 of the offseason program. Phase 3 starts next week with OTAs. They have 6 OTAs and a mandatory minicamp day, so 7 total practice days in the spring, and then that's it until late July when training camp starts. But the Eagles have been in the building. All this is voluntary, but their offseason program started on April 21st. So it's not like, it was our first time in there talking to players this spring, but they've been there for a while now.
Yeah, and for people who are asking, Dave and I both independently came up with, I believe, July 22nd as our best guess for the first day of training camp practice. So they report the day before. We might be off by a day or two, but it's going to be somewhere in that area. It'll be earlier than normal because they play a few days before the rest of the league. But yeah, these guys have been together for quite a while now. So it's funny because it's the first time we've seen them, but they're all talking about how everything they've done so far in installation and the offense. And it's really a year-round job now. When I started doing this, guys had jobs. Guys would, and it was just kind of the end of that era where guys would have off-season jobs.
Is that right? You covered the league when guys, I didn't realize it was going on that late.
Some did, like the younger guys who didn't have a lot of, minimum wage was really low back then. So some of those guys who weren't making a lot of money or weren't guaranteed a job, yeah, they would work, they would have jobs. But as you know, in the early 80s, almost all of them did, unless you were a really high paid guy. I was just writing about Pete Petos, the Hall of Famer. He retired. He led the NFL in receiving his last year and retired to accept a sales job that was more lucrative than playing in the NFL. He was an all-pro his last year. He's like, I can make more money in sales. So things have definitely changed. But back then, training camp was kind of to get into shape. You would use training camp to get into shape because you've been working all off season doing whatever. So that's certainly changed a lot since I started doing this, among other things.
I didn't realize that was still going on when you started. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we can go through a lot of what they said. I think it is interesting, though, that you mentioned all 3 of the players we spoke with were offensive players. That kind of makes sense. If the PR staff is like, who do we want to kind of lead this off for the team? A lot of their leaders are on the offensive side of the football. A lot of the guys who have been here and who will be here for a long time are on that side of the football, especially now, no BG, no Slay, no Fletcher anymore. Like some of the long-term defensive players just aren't there anymore.
None of them are here. Yeah. I think Reed Blankenship's been here longer than anybody, which is just unbelievable. There's nobody from the 21 team left on defense, which is, I guess there are guys who have come back, but yeah.
Patrick Johnson, is that who you're talking about?
That's who I'm talking about. Yeah. There's one guy who's come back, but I also think, look, they want to control the narrative as much as possible, and they know the questions today were going to be about Kevin Patullo and the changes on the offensive coaching staff, and all the quotes obviously are going to be positive. So there's a reason we got offensive guys today as well, including the coach. because they know what we're going to ask. But that's fine. And it was good to talk to Jalen, especially about the coaching staff changes and Nick as well. But you're right, as far as the defense goes. I mean, it's a crazy contrast. I mean, the offense has just been together for so long. Most of those guys, and the defense is just a completely new group. It's definitely studying contrasts.
Yeah, and last year the defense was better, which is crazy to think about. And just like the without even looking at players, to know that about the two sides. And then, yeah, the defense was the best in the league, of course.
Yeah, that's the reality of the league, though. And they do still have a lot of really good players on defense.
Yeah, not saying that they're not good players. It's just they don't have the prototypical C on the chest guys. That they have leaders. They have guys who will be captains on that side of the football, but offense is full of them.
Yeah, no doubt.
Let's get into some of what we heard. I don't know where you want to start. You mentioned the staff changes on offense, and I think that was, to me, the most intriguing and interesting thing to come out of today was hearing them talk about Kevin Patullo and Scott Loeffler, and moving on from Kellen Moore, another offensive coordinator here under Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, and from what we've heard from Jalen in the past, I mean, he's spoken very bluntly about how he feels like the changes in play caller and offensive coordinator have held him back in the past, and that he's kind of starting over again with all these new guys. He made the comparison with, I wish I could be like one of these offensive linemen they've had one coach. I mean, Lane Johnson's had one position coach since he got here in 2013. And Jalen openly kind of longed for that kind of continuity. That said, he was extremely positive today about the changes. He spent time with Kevin Patullo, 4 years with him. He talked about the prep time that they spent together. They speak the same language. So I think what you're getting is a new voice and a lot of new ideas and a new title and new responsibilities, but you're getting it within this framework of familiarity. So I think you get the best of both worlds there for Jalen. He's getting new ideas, but he's getting them from a guy that he's comfortable with and has worked with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I think. Back in February, we talked to him by his locker, and at that point, it seemed very likely that Patullo was going to be promoted to offensive coordinator, and maybe that was the reason, because he didn't have the job yet. Jalen said, well, paraphrasing here, but he said, it's a new role, so we don't really know how it's going to go. Now he's seen him in that role. And I think that, Jalen's not someone who's going to put on a big show of positivity if he doesn't really feel like it. So I think it is notable that he seemed excited about the offense. And it seems like, he even brought up back when he mentioned how much the offense was changing under Kellen Moore. It seems like the offense, at least like the terminology and what's on his plate, isn't going to be that drastic of a change from Kellen Moore to Patullo.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, they're going to keep what worked, and a lot of things worked, and they'll definitely add new wrinkles. But I don't think you can see the kind of overhaul you saw from maybe Steichen to Brian Johnson, who was here the year before as well, and then Brian Johnson to Kellen.
Now, I should mention that while a lot of things changed behind the scenes terminology wise, it wasn't like the offense was just Kellen Moore's offense last year. It was not as drastic looking as we thought it might be.
Yeah, that's true. Jalen also mentioned Parks Frazier. He mentioned Scott Heffler. So Scott Loeffler. So let me get that right. Which I thought was interesting to do. He brought those guys up on his own, and just what a good start that they've all gotten. And I think you never know what it's going to look like in week 10 and whether it'll all still be that positive. But you're right. Jalen doesn't hand out platitudes without really believing in it. I mean, that's not his nature. So to hear him speak so, I guess, glowingly, in the context of in the past, he hasn't in similar circumstances. I thought that was, like you said, very notable and encouraging.
Yeah. And, Patullo he's been here, but this is a very different role. He's now in charge of installing the offense, and any wrinkles and changes from what they did previously, he's in charge of all that. And Nick Sirianni's involved. And I would guess Nick will be more involved on offense this year than he was with Kellen Moore here, just because Kellen had the experience in that chair, whereas this is a new job for Patullo. Maybe not like back to the level it once was, but I would imagine he'll be a little more involved than he was last year.
I mean, also the flip side of that is that Kevin knows the personnel better than Kevin Patullo knows the personnel better than Kellen Moore did when he got here.
That's fair.
So I think that might even it out there, but it's certainly going to be something interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and like the thing with Patullo, I don't want to make this all about Kevin Patullo, but I'm really curious to see if the offense looks any different. It's looked a lot of the same under Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, this era of football. I don't have a lot of confidence that it's going to look wildly different based on just Patullo's been here. We know he's been Sirianni's right-hand man, and I'm curious if he really will bring any fresh new ideas to the table. I don't have a ton of confidence that that's going to be the case, but
I feel like it might be.
You think so?
I do. And, Nick talked about Kevin Patullo and just how, this is an opportunity he's been waiting for so long, and how excited he is, and just how he's been around him a lot, but there were a lot of things. I think he spoke about that today. There's a lot I didn't know about him and that I'm learning about him, which kind of tells me maybe Kevin's got some new things up his sleeve.
Now, will they allow him to implement them? Because you think back to 2 years ago, Brian Johnson kind of gets scapegoated after that 23 season. But I think he was feeling a little handcuffed in that role under Sirianni. Maybe that year away last year for Nick has kind of changed his approach to dealing with the coordinator and what the offense will look like.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I don't think we'll know the answer to that for several months because we have to see it in action. But it seems like Nick and Kevin are really on the same page. And I think that might allow him, they've known each other. They've worked together for 8 years. It might allow Nick to trust Kevin Patullo more than other coordinators, and maybe as much as Kellen Moore. Just a hunch.
Yeah, maybe. I'm fascinated to see where it goes and if things really do look any different this year.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. It's like the offense finished on such a high note, the passing offense, but I still go back. It was December when we were like, oh no, what's going on with this team? I think there's room for, and I'm not saying that to be negative. I say it as almost like a positive, because I still think there's room for growth with this offense, that they didn't even hit their full potential in the regular season. Obviously the run game was unbelievable, but in terms of the passing game, I still think there's another level they can hit this year. And that's really exciting after you just won a Super Bowl to say like, yeah, tangibly we can get better.
Yeah, and I think they're going to have to throw the ball more. The odds that Saquon duplicates what he did last year. I looked up every player that's ever had. I think I went back to 1,700 yards, and like the average guy had 900 fewer yards the next year, and rushed for an average of like a yard less per carry. Doesn't mean Saquon will, but it's a pretty conclusive trend, at least up till this point. And if that happens, they're going to have to find other ways. Like, let's say Saquon has 1,300 yards. It'd be a good year, but it would also be like 700 fewer than this year. So they got to find a way to make plays through the air more consistently. And Jalen talked about that, which I thought was also encouraging. He talked about how we've got it, because look, teams are going to make stopping Saquon priority number one, like the Chiefs did. And the Eagles had answers in the Super Bowl in the passing game. They got to be able to do that when that's the challenge, when teams load the box or Saquon just doesn't have his best day. And if if his performance drops a little bit next year, there might be more of those days where they're calling on the passing game to make plays and to carry the offense. We just didn't see that much this past year. If they have to, how can they do? And I think Jalen understands that. And gosh, he's still so hungry to keep improving in the passing game. So that'll be interesting to watch.
It goes along the lines with what I took away from A.J. Brown today, was just about how they can't be stagnant, how they have to keep pushing and evolving as an offense, which is encouraging to hear. Obviously, you got to do it, but for a team coming off a Super Bowl, it's not good enough to just run it back. That's where you get in trouble because the rest of the league is trying to catch up, and now they're targeting you, and they're doing things specifically designed to stop what you've been so successful at. It's that that's the chess match we always talk about. You have to be a couple of steps ahead. You have to continue to evolve as an offense. And it would be so easy for a team to win a Super Bowl and say, let's just do what we did. It worked. We won. But I think we saw after the Eagles' last Super Bowl win that's not the way to do it. You might have some success, but it's really tough to get back to the mountaintop if you just try to run it back like that.
Yeah, and I think that's something Howie understood. And it's one of the reasons we saw so many changes on defense. And Nick talked today about how he enjoyed the parade, and then it was like right back to preparing for 25. Kellen got the Saints job, and so in the days after the Super Bowl, he was working on building a staff and then building an offense. So I really liked. It just seems like everyone we talk to just has that mentality of, yeah, it was great. It's over with. We just started working like pretty quickly after that game and changing gears and pointing to 25. Now everybody says that. So, but I think Nick I think that's something that he's pretty good at, is expressing the importance of moving on, putting it behind you. This team wants to be, you wrote about dynasties the other day. This team wants to win a few of these, and they certainly have the pieces to make a run at a few more or a couple more. They want to be.
Saquon actually, he's the one who said the D word at the podium after they won the Super Bowl, which, it's a quick turn the page, but there's no reason this team, well, there are plenty of reasons. It's hard, right? But if there's a team that could do it, like I think they're in a position to have a sustained run of success here.
I was they had ESPN on where I was having lunch today, and it was muted, so all you just saw what was on the screen, and I look up and it says Eagles versus the field. Who do you like in the Super Bowl? So that's where the expectations are. But I really believe Nick is not going to let this team get complacent. He never has. And they listen to him, and he really does a good job setting the tone and, kind of getting them to understand what kind of approach they have to take day in and day out. And I just don't see this as a team that's going to, rest on their laurels, their accomplishments, and go 9-8 this year. I think they're going to take that to heart with his messaging.
And I think it goes beyond Nick. I think the head coach saying it's one thing, but when you have players like AJ Brown, and he kind of made headlines in the last few months for talking about it publicly, like winning the Super Bowl was not what he thought it would be, which I understand. Like you work your whole life to get there, and then you're there and you go, oh, all right. Not that it wasn't cool, not that you didn't enjoy it, but he said it, like the thing that brings him joy is the journey of getting there. And I think it's good that he's able to voice that and to be able to be such a self-starter that, no, like I can be motivated without that carrot of a Super Bowl in front of me.
Yeah. And he talked about that a little bit today, probably not quite as expansively as he has earlier in the offseason, but when your leaders, like you said, most of them are on offense, but when your leaders have that mentality, other people are going to fall into lockstep behind them. So they have that. They have excellent leadership from that standpoint.
Let's talk about Nick Sirianni a little bit. He had the chance to thank Jeffrey Lurie, thank the organization for his contract extension, a multi-year deal. He declined to say what that means. The organization has not said what that means, which a little curious that they just leave it as multi-year deal. Eventually, I think we'll probably all find out how many years this extension is for and when it runs through. But it's obviously a deserving extension for Sirianni. And the theme, I think I asked him what he learned about himself over the last 4 years being in this chair. one of the things you said, I already knew it, but it instilled in me and it cemented the idea like, yeah, you got to work hard, but also you have to overcome adversity. And I think for Nick, that's kind of his hallmark.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we talked about that on the emergency pod yesterday, whenever that was. You're going to face it, and he understands that, and he embraces it. I think his phrase today was embrace adversity. I think is exactly what he said. He talked about, it was really interesting. He talked about the 2-5 start, 3-6 start in 21. He talked about the collapse. Really, it was really interesting to hear him talk about it. He just threw out, we won one of our last 6 games. I mean, he had that.
He said the word collapse.
He did. It was really the most detailed, because back then he didn't talk about it when it happened. It was really the most detailed, maybe at the Super Bowl, one of his pressers, he might have talked about 23. But I just thought it was really clearly on his mind, that just the way that 23 season ended and how they bounced back from it. And I just think it's something that he's so good at is understanding that adversity is going to come. He talked about personal adversity. He talked about, his injury when he was playing for Mount Union. He talked about his dad overcoming cancer. He talked about adversity in football and in life, and it's going to happen to every single person. And it's how you deal with it. It's how you respond to it. It's how you learn from it. It's how you grow from it. That's what really defines you. And that's such an important message to get across to your team. And I think he does it beautifully. Like when you're down 21-6 early in the third quarter, that game's not over. How are you going to respond? And we've seen them, come back from some deficits because of that. And I think that might be his biggest strength as a coach is understanding it and getting that message across, that things are going to be bad. There's going to be low times. There's going to be hard times. There's going to be challenges. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I mean, gosh, late last year, they blew what was their biggest lead against Washington? They had 13, and I think early in the fourth quarter, and blew that game. I haven't lost since. So it's so important. And I just think he's exceptional at understanding it and dealing with it and teaching that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's kind of become the thing we know him for. And
yeah,
I think that's pretty unique, and that's fun for a coach to have that.
Yeah, and I think Doug was good at that too. I think Doug certainly faced a lot of it as well. I thought that was one of his strengths while he was here.
Mm-hmm. Anything else from the press conferences today that really stood out to you?
Jordan Mailata was asked about the right guard competition, and he said, "Competition? Who says there's a competition there?" And the follow-up was, "Well, who's taking the first team reps?" He said, "I'm not going to tell you that." And then like a minute later, he talked about the competition at right guard. So that was pretty funny. But no, I think we talked to Jalen for a little bit, who we characterized some of that. He was pretty chatty today.
He was, yeah.
Good. It was good, Jalen. Good chatty Jalen. We talked to AJ, Jalen, Jordan, and Nick. So no, I think we covered all the.
I have a few other notes.
Yeah, what do you have? I'm not surprised.
Jordan Mailata talking about the young offensive tackles in particular. He said all three of the draft pick rookies have been impressive. Of course, Drew Kendall's not at his position, whereas Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams are. So, but he seems pretty impressed by those young kids.
Yeah, he said he told them, you can come after my job. If you're better than me, you're going to play. But I'm going to make you work. I'm going to make you work for it. But he did seem to appreciate the work ethic. He said it was a couple shaky days early, but the message got across. It's not enough. You got to do better, and they have been. I mean, if you slack off under Stout, yeah, you're going to hear about it. Yeah,
or in that room with Jordan and Cam and Landon and Lane Johnson, like that's not going to fly.
Yeah,
so I thought it was cool to hear him talk about the young players. Nick Sirianni brought up that he's spoken with some other coaches this offseason, which is something he's done before. It's not new, but the names he brought up today, Larry Karras.
Shock.
Jay Wright.
He's a longtime Mount Union coach, for those of you who have been living in a cave for the last 4 years.
Thank you. Yeah, I know I should mention that. Not a household name anywhere else other than like Mount Union in Philadelphia. I should know.
In Jamestown, New York, or whatever.
Yeah. Larry Karras, Jay Wright, Gino Auriemma, Don Staley, and Nick Saban.
Nick was the first. That was the only name that we heard for the first time. We know he's talked to those other ones a number of times.
And I believe he said it was the first time he's reached out to Saban.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if he takes like copious notes during those conversations. What do you think, Dave?
I think he probably does.
Dave asked Nick that after his presser, and he started like miming, taking notes.
I was just curious. It's sometimes you ask questions for yourself just because I'm like wondering, when he's on the phone with Nick Saban, is he just listening and trying to retain it all, or is he writing? And he said he takes copious notes, kind of furiously writes stuff down, and then the minute the call's over, he goes back into his notes and tries to decipher his handwriting, which is something I understand completely. Sometimes I cannot read my own handwriting, and you have to kind of make sure you know what you're writing there. And then he says he tries to like segment it and take away pieces that he thinks will actually help him. So it's kind of an insight into his process a little bit.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And you win a Super Bowl and still have that hunger for what can I learn from other successful coaches? I think that's impressive.
It's something, by the way, that I was thinking about. Something that Nick and Howie share is the understanding that you can learn about team sports, and it doesn't have to be from your particular sport.
Yeah.
Nick is happy to talk to basketball coaches, hockey coaches, whoever. And you'll remember back in Howie's Year Off, which would be the title of his memoir one day, My Year Off, my year away. He talked
year in exile, I think he said, is what it'll be.
I like that. He went and talked to GMs from different sports, different leagues, different countries.
Yeah.
Because there's value in that. So they're in lockstep there. And that's something, gosh, is there anything that Jeffrey Lurie would want to hear more than his head coach speaking with other championship coaches in other sports?
Yeah, no question. Is there anything other than notes that can be copious?
I don't know. I'll look that up. Copious. Yeah, I've only ever heard it used. I mean, I guess it could be.
What else could be copious?
Abundantly in supply or quantity. The first sentence is she took copious notes, but here's another one. I had been a little too copious in talking of my country, which is a weird sentence. See what Merriam-Webster has. Yeah, it seems like
I've never heard it in reference to anything other than notes.
Neither have I, but there's plenty of examples of copious amounts of volatile gases.
So notes and gases. Okay, got it.
Copious quantities of dumb luck. I like that.
I'm going to work that into my 10 obs this weekend.
Kurt Vonnegut, the Constants, ignorant, vulgar, and brash, had copious quantities of dumb luck.
I like Alex's example. It's a copious amount of nacho cheese involved.
That's the difference between something I would write and Kurt Vonnegut.
It's true.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Anything else from today's pressers that you wanted to hit?
No, I noticed, or somebody pointed out that there's now a cage around the exit sign by the basketball hoop on the left side of the auditorium.
It's been there.
There's no exit there, so that's kind of a weird place for that sign. But you figure a lot of balls are hitting the right side of that rim and smashing that sign.
It's a weird rim.
Sorry?
It's a weird rim.
Oh, it's the rim. It's not your shooting.
Yeah. The other topic that was brought up quite a bit was the tush push and the fate of it. Most of the guys were like, hey, it's out of our hands now. Nick Sirianni was like, you guys know what I think about this. Jordan Mailata revealed that he doesn't like the name tush push, so he hopes it gets outlawed, which he obviously doesn't. It's been a very successful play for the Eagles, but we're recording this on late Tuesday afternoon, early evening. It seems like this is headed toward the tush push being banned.
It looks that way, and I still think they're going to be really good. Down at the goal line, they're going to look, they still have the same O-line. They still have a quarterback with, the strongest legs I've ever seen on a quarterback. So they're still going to be able to score. Was it Mulata who said it's just a yard? Who said that?
AJ Brown.
AJ said it's just a yard. So they'll still score. It might not be 95%. It might be 85%, but they'll still be really good at it.
Yeah, I think so. Honestly, the funniest thing was Jordan Mailata. He was like, it's just the pushing element. And everyone's like, yeah. He's like, I guess we'll just do it with no push then, which is exactly what they'll do. Real quick, though, I can kind of update people on how we've gotten here with the tush push if you don't know. So the Packers proposed the rule earlier in the offseason. It actually lasts until the owners' meetings and gets talked about there. The previous time a rule change was presented that would eliminate the tush push was back in 2023, and it didn't even make it into the meeting room. So it got farther immediately this time.
Yeah, because the Eagles won a Super Bowl and everyone's jealous.
Yeah, I mean, seems that way,
yeah.
Honestly. But it gets into the room in Palm Beach, Florida with the owners. It doesn't have the support it needs to pass. The straw poll, based on reports, had it like dead even 16-16. So whenever that happens, there's not going to be a vote. You're not going to vote and watch it lose. You're going to table the discussion and see if there's a way you rework it. And immediately after that meeting, Rich McKay, the competition committee chairman, who used to be really sick of me running him down to ask about the uniform rules back when we were worried about Kelly Green coming back, he brought up immediately that a possibility was going back to the pre-2004 language that basically outlawed any pushing or pulling of a runner ball carrier. The minute he said that, it hit me like, oh, this is probably going to happen. It has support from within the competition committee. It seems like it has the support of the commissioner. And when that happens and the ball starts rolling that way, you kind of see the writing on the wall. So this week in Minnesota, Minneapolis, there are additional owners meetings, and it's going to come up for a vote there. The language has indeed been changed to reflect what McKay said, basically making it a little broader. So at least it doesn't give the appearance that they're targeting one team. In actuality, they really are. So honestly, a lot of the process has been very disingenuous.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I don't think there's ever been a rule change targeting one team like this one, and one team that just happened to go 14-3 and win a Super Bowl this year. So if they think this is going to derail the Eagles, they're wrong. They're still going to be good. They're going to win a lot of games. They're still going to score from the 1 yard line.
Yeah, but I do think this is probably the end of the tush push. By our next podcast, we'll know. But it seems trending that way.
Looks that way.
Yeah. We should mention the other big things at these owners' meetings, which these second spring ones typically don't have this much juice, but there's some stuff going on in Minneapolis. NFL players will be able to play in the Olympics in flag football in 2028. That was passed 32-0. So no doubt about that one. I don't know how many great players are actually going to play because it's going to happen in July, either right before or during training camp.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah, I guess you'll get guys who retired or just aren't on a team. It's going to be interesting, but yeah, it'll be fun. I'll still just watch track, but whatever. That's me.
You won't watch flag football in the Olympics?
I probably won't. Probably won't watch it.
Why not?
Because there's track on at the same time.
So when the Olympics are happening, based on like where they are, do you try to watch live, or do you watch the NBC, like the broadcast at night?
Well, I mean, yeah, it all depends what time. I mean, if it's because it's impossible to like not see the results somewhere, unless you just stay away from your phone and computer. So if it's happening at 3 a.m, if like the hurdles semifinals are at 3 a.m, I'm not going to get up and watch. But any other time, yeah, I will be watching live. Yeah,
that's the thing with sports. I want to watch it live. But sometimes it's nice that like the stuff you haven't been able to see, they do a good job like putting it all together.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's me, company man.
That's right.
The other thing up on the docket this week is playoff seeding. What do you make of this proposal, which would basically, the way it is right now, you get seeded by winning the division and then and then by record. This would kind of eliminate that, and it would seed you by record.
I don't like it. I just don't like it. I think the system now is fair. I think there should be a reward for winning the division, even if it's at 9-8. You could be in a division.
So it's so important to note the first tiebreak would be if you won your division.
Right.
So if two teams had a 14-3 record, and one of them won the division and one was a wild card team. I shouldn't have said 14-3, but if the two teams were 12-5,
all those 14-3 teams not winning their division, who are they again?
So if you're 12-5 and you won a division versus a 12-5 team that was a wild card team, the division winner would be ahead.
Yeah, I think the system now is a fair one. I like it. Gosh, I think was it Seattle who made the playoffs, won their division at like 7-9 a couple of years ago, and then I think won a playoff game. Yeah, I like that. I believe in the importance of winning your division, and that's going to get lessened by this.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that it's not getting lessened. The one thing I will say, I think it will potentially make week 17 and week 18 more meaningful. Like teams will have to play for something, or they won't have to all the time, but there's probably going to be more to play for late in the season than there has been recently.
Yeah, and that means better ratings, and that's obviously.
Well, I mean, better games for fans.
Yeah, better games. That's why there'll be better ratings. They don't care about the quality of the games. They want people to watch because that translates into income and revenue. So that's fine. I mean, it's a business. And certainly the Eagles have had more than their share of meaningless last week of the season games. I just like the system the way it is.
I get that.
How would you vote?
When I'm the owner, when I'm an owner,
you had to vote. Yeah.
I think I would vote for it. Yeah. And I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Probably. I would think.
Whenever things come up for a vote and they actually go to vote, it's probably going to pass because otherwise they'd table it if they don't have the support.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a little break. I want to hear about your experience at the Eagles Autism Challenge, and then we have a bunch of questions to get to as well.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
We are back on the Eagle Eye Podcast. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro. The Eagles Autism Challenge happened this past weekend, raised copious amounts of money. Is that good?
That was good.
Okay. Copious amounts of money, over $10 million for autism research and programs. You were there, Roob. How was it?
Yeah, I think it was my fourth one. It's just such a great event. I really enjoy it. 10 million is a record. I think 8.1 last year, and it's still going up. You can still donate through the end of the month, which is nice. I'll let you know where to donate, but it's such a great atmosphere with all the kids there. A ton of players are there. A bunch of players did the bike ride. Jordan Mulatto's doing the bike ride, and a bunch of former players, Kelsey, BG, all did the bike ride. Former players everywhere. Jason Avant and Irving Fryer did the run. I saw Tanner McKee out on the run, and it was hilarious because he was signing so many autographs. I kept passing him because he would stop. He was with his wife, Lauren. He would stop, sign autographs and get pictures taken and pose for pictures. And then he'd pass me. I mean, he's a professional athlete. He's a good athlete. And then he would stop again. And I ended up beating him because he took so many photos and signed so many autographs. And I looked it up. He was probably running about 9.5 minute pace per mile. So it would have taken him about 29 minutes to do 5K, but his official chip time was 59 minutes. So he spent 30 minutes. He spent more time signing autographs and doing photos than he's just so gracious and so eager to talk to people. So it was really cool. And that's the kind of event it is. Saw Scott Loeffler out there on the course, had a good chat with him. I did the last half mile with Aaron Moorhead, wide receivers coach, which was fun. Vic was in the stadium after the finish. There's a bunch of stuff going on in the stadium. They had a band and they had all kinds of kids activities and food trucks. And Vic was there, so I had a good chat with Vic. It's just that kind of event where kids can interact with players. The thing that was crazy was what a superstar Cooper DeJean has become. Everywhere he went, there was just like these waves of kids chasing after him and screaming. Like Jason Kelsey was not getting that kind of, BG was not getting that kind of attention. Everywhere Cooper went, and he did the 10-mile bike ride. I mean, he would walk from one side of the thing to the other side, and all the kids on that side would start racing over with their autograph books or photos or their phones to get pictures. He's 22, and he's just handling it so well. I mean, what a story! We've talked about the pick six so much, but he's really enjoying the notoriety that brought him, picking off Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl for his first career interception on his birthday. So it was really cool just to see him interacting with fans, and he's so good at it and so natural as a young guy. It's really cool to see. It's just a really fun day, and they had 7,000 people this year registered, which is 2,000 more than they've ever had. People want to be a part of everything that the Eagles are doing, and there's no better thing to be a part of than something that raises money for such a good cause. $10 million is significant. They've raised, I think, $40 million since they started, so 20% of that was this year. Really enjoyable morning. The weather held off. I think it's rained 9 of the last 10 Saturdays, which I don't know how does the weather know it's Saturday? It does. But I'm going to get you out there. A lot of people are asking, where's Dave? Love the podcast. Got a lot of love the podcast. Where's Dave? And I just say, he doesn't believe in charity, I guess. But I am going to get you out there one of these years. And if you do want to donate, just go to eaglesautismchallenge.org. And there's a donate button right there. You just click on it. If you want to donate in somebody's name, you just type in their name, like Reuben Frank. It's REUBEN.
Not to be confused with Reuben Randall, RUE.
That's right. I always struggle with that one. Not that I had many reasons to write about him, but during his brief Eagles career. But it's a lot of fun, and the Eagles do a great job putting it together. It's a year-round event that they planned for, and it went off without a hitch, and I had a blast.
Awesome. You want to get to some questions?
Let's do it.
eagleeye@nbcuni.com. QR code is on the screen. We'll leave it up there if you're watching on YouTube. First one is from Constantine. Hey, Reuben, Dave, I'll say that I'm the real clown for calling Nick a clown last year and wondering when he'd be fired. I couldn't be more thrilled for him and his family. As an Eagles fan, what a great thing to have the head coach of a Super Bowl champion team locked down. This here is some tasty humble pie. Your emergency pod got me thinking about the fact that Sirianni's greatest value to the team lies beyond public eyes. This fact is now obvious and beyond a doubt because of last year's results and the reporting of writers like yourselves who give us a glimpse into Sirianni's gifts as a leader of men. That being said, I don't think we can be blamed for watching this dude make so many mistakes, gaffes, and unforced errors and wondering whether he's worth our money and time as fans. He clearly is, but it's these flaws that he's been given the opportunity and resources to overcome by Laurie that make him who he has become, as you guys put it. Nick is complicated, passionate, humble, and a little ridiculous and very real, just like Philly. When it all comes together, there's nothing more beautiful in the world, not even like flowers and stuff.
That might be the longest letter we've ever gotten.
It wasn't that long.
Or that you've ever read. No, I don't think there were that many gaffes. I certainly don't think the speech to the team about the roots growing underground was a mistake or a gaffe. I think it was, it obviously worked. It obviously had a positive effect. The mistake might have been telling us that he did it and using flowers instead of roots or whatever, plants. But I don't even think that was a mistake. He was, showing us his process, and it's a great metaphor. And, that we're getting better, just people can't see it yet. We're growing as a team. It's just not visible above solid ground. I got through to them, and they've lost like 14 games since then.
Yeah, I don't think Constantine was saying that was a mistake. I think there were other mistakes he's made along the way, which I think is true.
Yeah, like every coach.
Yeah, like every coach. I think the point though is like he's a little different.
He is.
He's a little different. Yeah, I think it took a while for people to understand that that's okay. And I still think it's a process with him to kind of rein in his emotions at times. It's something that, as of a year ago, Jeffrey Lurie was concerned about.
Sure.
You know, he was especially concerned that he would lose favor with referees because Nick was flying off the handle. And I think Nick understands that. Even after, I mean, heck, he had to apologize this past season for the whole thing with the fans. So it's not like he was perfect last year either, but man, you put up with all that.
Yeah. And I just think that, I mean, that's who he is. That's his personality. I mean, you know, he's fiery. He's emotional. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He doesn't try to hide who he is. And I think that's something that can really resonate in this city.
Next one is from Paul. Watching the mic'd up behind the scenes of the Eagles draft, we see Howie trying to trade up, supposedly for Jahad Campbell the entire time, without any success until reaching the Chiefs just one pick ahead of the Birds. The Chiefs GM, Brett Veach, only agrees to the trade after he asks Howie if he's going to pick an offensive or defensive player with that pick. When Howie responds defense, Veach agrees. Shouldn't Howie have then realized it meant Casey was going offense and thus no longer needed to trade and backed out, perhaps using that fifth rounder instead to move up in the second round or later?
Well, I think he was concerned that Veach was going to trade that pick to someone else.
Yeah, and I think that was an insinuation, was that, you know, if you don't trade up, someone else might.
Yeah.
That's the only reason you do it.
Exactly.
Obviously, at that point.
Yeah.
And the price of giving up a fifth round pick, if that's the guy you've been waiting for an hour, just to make sure you get him, is worth it.
And you have 19 other fifth round picks at that point. So, yeah.
Next one comes from Andrew. Joe Douglas had success with the Eagles, but failed quite miserably with the Jets. Everyone fails with the Jets, but do you think former colleagues take negative experiences elsewhere into consideration, or do they value what they saw in-house more? Douglas's experience with the Ravens helped him land a more senior role with the Eagles, and his experience with the Eagles helped him land the Jets' position. Can Howie and Lurie ignore Douglas's failings with the Jets?
Yeah, I think one key thing that you mentioned is that everybody fails with the Jets. It's just not an atmosphere that's conducive to success. I'm not sure how much Joe had to do with that. They drafted some good players while he was there.
They missed some too.
Yeah, and they missed some while he was here. Look, nobody knows Joe's strengths and weaknesses better than Howie. Maybe Ozzie Newsome, but I mean, they were together here for 3 years, and Howie wouldn't have brought him back if he wasn't really, really confident in Joe's ability to evaluate football players. So, you know, Bill Belichick was terrible with the Browns. You know, it's all about that situation that you're in and who you have around you. And I think you would think it's going to work out because Howie knows Joe very very deeply and wouldn't bring him back if he wasn't confident in him.
Yeah, if you remember, I mean, Joe is not Joe specifically, but the idea that would become Joe was really the reason how he got put back in charge. Yeah. They came with that caveat after the 2015 season that Jeffrey Lurie said, yeah, we're going to put Howie back in charge, but we need to have a top personnel guy there with him. And they eventually waited for a while, and that search led to Joe Douglas. I think Howie always wanted Joe Douglas, but he was under contract and he wanted to finish it out with the Ravens, and then they eventually brought him in. But that's really the reason how he got put back in the power in the first place, was that some personnel guy to be named later would be there, and it ended up being Joe Douglas.
Yeah, that was an extraordinary. I think Joe got hired after the draft. I think he was part of the Ravens, that 16 draft. He came here in May, I think. But yeah, it's crazy to think that some of the stuff Jeff Lurie said back then.
But it made sense at the time.
It did.
That was viewed as Howie's weakness, was identifying players, especially in the draft.
Yeah. I don't think it's his weakness anymore.
It's not. And you look at Joe Douglas, like I guess it's like a tad concerning that there were so many bad picks with the Jets. There were good ones too. I mean, I was looking up the Jets history under him, like certainly good ones. They had that year with the 3 first rounders, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson. Like, yeah, that was good. Obviously, the big miss was he had a chance to draft a quarterback and took Zach Wilson.
He drafted Quinn and Williams, right?
Yeah. Quinn Williams was 2019, but he also drafted Mekhi Becton, who was a bust there. Denzel Mims in the 2nd round. There's like a lot of hits and a lot of misses.
Maybe Mekhi Becton was a coaching thing because we know he can play.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Whenever we talk about success of players, it's not just done in a vacuum. There are reasons players succeed and fail that we don't always see.
Yeah. And it can be complicated. A lot goes into it.
Exactly. All right, let's go to Nick here. Hey, Dave and Roob, love the content. I've watched you both for years now, and this is the first time I'm sending in a question. With Jahad Campbell starting with the inside linebacker group, is there a possibility we see more 3 linebacker looks once Nakobe Dean is also healthy? This could also lead to another interesting wrinkle with Cooper DeJean possibly playing outside corner on 3 linebacker downs. Curious about your thoughts.
I don't think it's something you do a lot, but I think there could be, if you want to get those 3 guys on the field, I do think there would be times you could do that.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're all going to be playing linebacker, like inside linebacker. If you do that, I think the way you would do it is thinking back to Howie talking about Campbell's pass rush ability as an edge rusher. I think in certain situations, maybe you put him out on the field as an edge rusher and you're able to have Bond and Nakobe at the linebacker spot. I think that would make sense because there were times last year where Zach Bond would kind of line up as an overhang, but they wouldn't put an extra linebacker on the field to replace him. There would just be like Nakobe in the middle of the field by himself. So there was never a situation where you'd have an extra, you know what I mean? Like they would walk him down and then maybe they'd put him back or let him rush, but it wasn't like they'd add an extra linebacker. So I'm curious to see if they would do that now with Campbell in the mix.
And the other option it would give you is to have Zach Bond as the overhang guy. You have the 3 of them out there. I mean, because he can certainly do that. So you can put the 3 of them out there, and teams aren't going to know exactly who's going to be lining up where, and that gives you an advantage.
Yeah, a little deception certainly in the mix, and that's kind of fun to think about. And in year 2 of Vic, I think you can start to do even more advanced stuff with the guys who have been here. It's crazy that they were that good in the first year under Vic because there's still there's so many intricacies of that defense and they kind of change it week to week anyway, which is the brilliance of what Vic Fangio did last year, but they can learn more and they can do more as they continue to move on here.
Yeah, no question.
Next one from David. Hey guys, curious on your thoughts of the losses in the scouting department and in the Eagles front office. Do you think this has anything to do with the previous draft, or is it people just taking promotions with other teams, or a combination of multiple things?
Yeah, they're promotions. And I mean, this happens when you're really good. Other teams want the guys who are involved in that scouting process. And this has been going on really since Joe Douglas left. He kind of started it when he left in 19, I guess it was. And then, since then there's just been mass exodus. And Howie's talked about how he's just got to, scouting for young scouting talent has become a big part of his job. And he's got a pipeline. He keeps track of guys around the league who, he meets, who have good reputations. He looks at the work that they've done, talks to GMs about them. And it's a big part of his job because he's lost 3 guys this year, 3 or 4, maybe, I guess 3 so far. And yeah, so it's, I think it's a positive. It means you're doing something right if people want to poach your talent.
Yeah, I agree. And they've had varying levels of success after leaving.
Yeah, not a lot of, huge success stories there.
Yeah, we'll see. I think some of these guys are probably going to become GMs, like who have left for promotions, but not yet general managers. They're probably on that track, and that's the thing too. It's like sometimes you have to jump around a little bit to get to that top chair.
Well, you're not going to be GM here, so I mean, Howie's GM for life, and I mean Anthony Patch worked here. I mean, he's been here longer than Howie. He wasn't going to get GM job. So if that's what you want, and if you're a scout, if you're a college scouting director or a vice president of player personnel, if you have any of those type of jobs, you want to be a GM, and you understand it's not going to happen with the Eagles. So what's my best chance? Going somewhere where I have a chance to do it.
Want to do one more?
It's like if you work for NBC Sports Philadelphia, you know you're not going to get the Eagles beat. Like, I've been doing this for 40 years. You've been doing it for quite a few years. But yeah, let's do one more. That was a bad comparison. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was weird. Next one's from Michael. My question is regarding contracts. Sometimes you'll see a deal that is announced as something like 4 years, $80 million, but then similar to the Goddard contract before the restructure, you can look up that last year and it's not guaranteed. Why do they even add these years if the player is unlikely to ever play on that last year with no guaranteed money? It's hard to remember a time, although I'm sure it's happened, where a player is willing to play that last year with no guaranteed money without holding out for a new deal. Is it simply a negotiating tool to make the deal sound better than it is prior to the last year's being relevant?
Yeah. I mean, agents want those numbers out there that, I got this guy $100 million deal. So, I should represent you. It's the game they play.
Yeah. And, there have been a few fully guaranteed contracts. It's rare. I remember that Kirk Cousins deal a few years ago with Minnesota. I really thought that was going to start to change it a little bit because there was like a 3-year fully guaranteed deal. It was an impressive. Kirk Cousins is like Hall of Fame in the money department. Mike McCartney is his agent. Did a really good job with that deal, fully guaranteed. So I thought maybe that would start to change things a little bit. It hasn't. And from the team perspective, why would they do it? Because it keeps that player under contract for longer and it gives them more time to figure out the next deal if they want to. That's really it. And they can get out of a deal early.
Sure. Yeah. But it's true. I mean, like, that's why you'll see, like, when Dave and I write about a contract, we'll say, reportedly this amount, but probably not this amount. And we'll know soon enough. But yeah, it's weird because on Major League Baseball, when a team signs a player, they put all the numbers out there in the press release, like the year by year, all the incentives, all that information is available. In the NFL, you got to really hunt for it.
And it's so silly because we find out. Well, especially with player contracts. Coaches are different, but like player contracts, we're gonna find out.
Yeah, because
that almost has to be public because that's what future contracts are based on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you have a question,
Dave and I both enjoy the whole contract. I don't know, just salary cap stuff and contract stuff and just kind of figuring these things out. It's a puzzle a lot of the times trying to understand. I remember some of these contracts, we would be on Slack studying these things and just trying to figure out exactly why did he do this? Why did he do this? Why did he do this? There's a reason for all of it. It's fun trying to figure it all out.
And the Eagles have been on the forefront of a lot of the gymnastics that teams now do.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. Going back to Joe Banner.
If you have a question for us, eagleeye@nbcuni.com. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Roob.
What's
any final thoughts here?
Effect? I'm good, Dave.
How about that? All right, for Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.